Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. You can follow the show's Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod, email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can support the show at paypal.me/cupofjoepod. I am on Cash App and Venmo at the Joey Harris. Folks, back again. Had a fantastic Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving weekend, and this weekend I actually went to WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Spent a majority of Saturday morning there at WrestleCade and decided to make it a Jim Crockett Promotions themed day for me. So caught up with Jim Ross and J.J. Dillon and Dennis Condrey and David Crockett himself. And always nice to catch up. This is the second time I've met JR and reminded him of meeting him after his one-man show in Boston, and actually told him I really enjoyed his show, as well as thanking him for some advice he gave me after my father-in-law had an attack of Bell's palsy. And he was telling me that, it doesn't take anything to be a decent human being. And I really enjoyed that. And then David Crockett, I talked to him about producing Starcades, especially from a couple of different locations. And he told me he thrived on that kind of stuff, that he was in the truck in Atlanta trying to hook things up between Atlanta and Greensboro. And it was stressful, but that he thrived on it because he has ADHD and dyslexia. So I really enjoyed that. I talked with J.J. Dillon about his book and told him how much I enjoyed it, and he really appreciated that. And then with Dennis Condrey, I talked about, he told me he was 74. And I said, when did you get started in the business? And he said, I got started at 19 and got the hell beat out of me when I was 19. So it was really good, really enjoyable to spend just the morning with some legends. I really enjoyed that. And today we look at Fall Brawl 94 War Games from WCW. Fall Brawl was shown on pay-per-view on September the 18th. 1994 from the Roanoke Civic Center in Roanoke, Virginia. There were 6,500 in attendance. We start out with our intro. Tony Schiavone welcomes us to Fall Brawl and introduces Martin Del Rey to do the national anthem. Tony, Bobby Heenan, and Mean Gene Okerlund talk about what's coming up on the pay-per-view. WCW World Television Championship match. Lord Steven Regal with Sir William versus Johnny B. Bad. The crowd hates Regal and Sir William. Regal comes out with the greatcoat and the powdered wig on. Tony goes crazy talking about it, but we've seen Regal wear it before. Referee Nick Patrick presents the belt. Regal starts out stalling. They lock up in the corner and break. Another lock up and Bad with a wrist lock. Regal with a side headlock. Bad back to a wrist lock. Regal gets to the ropes. They trade moves. Bad with a drop kick and a drop toe hold. He goes back to the wrist lock again. They get to the corner and break. Bad with a double underhook to get a 2 count. Regal regroups with Sir William. Back and forth. Bad with an armbar, into an airplane spin. Regal rolls out, and Bad hits a tope on Regal. He throws Regal in and guillotines him on the top rope. Regal attacks Bad. Referee Nick Patrick admonishes Regal, allowing Sir William to attack Bad with a cane. Regal runs Bad into a turnbuckle. Regal with a takedown. Regal with a side headlock. Bad with a shot. Regal with a European uppercut for a 2 count. Bad hits a knee lift. Regal with another uppercut. He batters Bad in the corner. Regal with a full Nelson. Bad breaks the hold. Regal drops Bad. Bad with an atomic drop and a backdrop. Bad with head scissors for a 1 count. Bad thrown outside. Bad with a sunset flip for a 2 count. William grabs Bad but gets taken out by Regal when Bad moves. Bad gets a roll up for a 2 count. Regal with European uppercuts. Bad gets a backslide to get the pin and become the new television champion. Tony and Bobby talk about what's been happening between Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan and show what happened to Hogan at the Clash. They bring in Mean Gene to talk about the situation, and Gene plugs the hotline. Loser leaves WCW. Cactus Jack versus Kevin Sullivan with Dave Sullivan. Dave shows off his Hulk Hogan stuff as he comes to the ring. Cactus and Sullivan fight out on the floor. Sullivan drives Cactus over the barricade. They battle all over. Sullivan throws Jack into the ring. Cactus runs Sullivan into a turnbuckle. Cactus with a back elbow. They fight back to the floor, and Sullivan ran into a ring post. Cactus takes up a ringside mat. Cactus climbs up top, but Dave grabs him for Sullivan to throw Cactus on the exposed concrete. Sullivan scoop slams Cactus on the concrete again. He runs Cactus into the apron. They trade shots, and Sullivan goes after the injured ear of Cactus Jack. Cactus kicks Sullivan away. He bites Sullivan. Irish whip and back elbow to Sullivan. Cactus Jack drops an elbow for a 2 count. He throws Sullivan back outside. Sullivan reverses a pile driver and backdrops Cactus Jack onto the exposed concrete. Sullivan with a clothesline. Sullivan kicks Cactus Jack. Jack throws a chair into the ring, but referee Randy Anderson catches it and puts it out. Sullivan throws Jack out again. Jack grabs a chair, but Dave Sullivan takes it from him. Sullivan runs Cactus Jack into the ring steps. Sullivan grabs another chair. Dave gets up on the apron and grabs that chair. Jack rushes Sullivan, but hits Dave, and Sullivan rolls Cactus Jack up to get the pin. Mick Foley is on to bigger and better things. There are boos in the crowd. Mean Gene talks to the stud stable. They talk about Colonel Parker having to compete. Arn Anderson is great here. Tony and Bobby talk about the injury to Ricky Steamboat. Steve Austin and Ricky Steamboat join Nick Bockwinkel in the ring. Steamboat was injured at the last clash. Bockwinkel announces Steamboat's injury. Steamboat says he understands the situation and that Austin never beat him. Austin says Steamboat saved himself from an ass kicking. Austin goes to leave, but Bockwinkel tells him he is wrestling tonight. Austin argues, but Bockwinkel announces it will happen, and Gary Michael Capetta announces it's Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Steve Austin versus Jim Duggan. The bell rings. Austin is berating everyone. He's still holding the title. He turns around and Duggan hits a backdrop and gets the pin. New U.S. champion. That was quick. The crowd goes wild. A USA chant goes out. Mean Gene interviews Duggan. He's excited to be a champion in WCW. He then talks about Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. WCW World Tag Team Championship match. Pretty Wonderful, Paul Orndorff and Paul Roma versus Stars and Stripes, Marcus Bagwell and the Patriot. Stars and Stripes and Jim Duggan have the same theme music. They show Barry Darsow as the blacktop bully being escorted out after berating the faces and grabbing Stars and Stripes. It takes a while to get started. A USA chant goes out. Then a Paula chant goes out. Roma and Bagwell start. Roma beats Bagwell down in the corner. Bagwell with a crossbody for a 2 count. Bagwell with a wrist lock. Patriot tagged in. He gets a wrist lock. Orndorff tagged in. Patriot picks the wrist lock up. Bagwell tagged in. He applies the wrist lock. Orndorff with the forearm shot. Patriot tagged in and gets a crossbody. Roma tagged in. Bagwell tagged in. Double hip lock. He gets a 2 count and an armbar on. Orndorff gets Bagwell down when referee Randy Anderson is distracted. Roma with a slam. Orndorff enters and hits a knee drop. He beats on Bagwell in the corner. Another elbow to the throat of Bagwell. Orndorff with the front face lock. Bagwell comes back with a sunset flip, but Orndorff drops him. They trade 2 counts. Roma tagged in and hit a drop kick. He gets a 2 count. Roma drops an elbow and Patriot breaks up the count. Orndorff beats Bagwell out on the floor while Anderson is trying to get the Patriot out. Patriot checks on Bagwell. Orndorff dumps a cooler on Bagwell. Bagwell reverses a pile driver into a backdrop, but Orndorff tags Roma in. Roma with a front face lock, but Bagwell pushes and tags Patriot in. Orndorff had distracted Anderson, who doesn't allow the tag. Patriot cleans house. Orndorff pile drives Bagwell on the floor. Patriot with a chokeslam full Nelson, but Anderson waves off the pin. Bagwell thrown in and Roma gets the pin. Mean Gene talks to Team Rhodes. The Nasty Boys talk about retribution. Dustin says Arn Anderson can no longer run and hide. Dusty says this is the night and we haven't seen nothing yet. I think that's a double negative. Anyway, I know what he means. We get a Halloween Havoc ad. A feature on the Triangle match to determine the number 1 contender to the WCW World title. Triangle match, the Guardian Angel versus Sting versus Vader with Harley Race. Vader and Race booed when they come out. Sting with a huge ovation when he comes out. Nick Bockwinkel gives all 3 a coin flip, and Sting receives a bye. Vader tells Sting he's next. Angel and Vader circle each other. Vader tries to intimidate Angel. They lock up and push off. They shoulder block each other. Test of strength. Vader beating Angel in the corner. Corner whip and splash to Angel. Angel comes back with a slam to Vader. He beats on Vader. Back and forth. Angel goes up top, but Vader moves out of the way and gets Angel in a headlock. Vader misses a corner charge, and Angel gets a roll-up for a 2 count. He gets a crossbody for another 2 count. It goes outside. Back in, Angel hits an enziguri and slams Vader for a 2 count. Angel with a leapfrog body guillotine. Referee Nick Patrick accidentally gets taken out. Angel hits the sidewalk slam, but there's no referee to count. Race comes in and headbutts Angel. Vader hits a Vader bomb to get the pin. 30-second rest period. Sting comes out looking determined. The bell rings and they circle each other. They lock up and break. Vader pushes Sting down a couple of times. Vader beats Sting down in the corner. Sting comes out again. He hits a flurry of offense to get Vader down, back and forth. Vader with a slam. He hits a Vader bomb. Vader goes for another Vader bomb, but Sting gets up and attacks him. Vader hits a clothesline. Vader misses a Vader bomb. Sting clotheslines Vader to the outside. They fight out on the floor. Race interferes and Sting clotheslines him to the floor. Sting suplexes Vader. Sting hits a top rope splash, but Vader gets his knees up on the second splash attempt. Vader with a slam, but misses a moonsault. Sting superplexes Vader. Race gets on the apron. Sting drops an elbow for a 2 count. Sting with a crucifix for a 2 count. Sting with a stinger splash for a 2 count. Sting with a belly-to-back suplex for a 2 count. Vader throws Sting out. Race attacks Sting while Vader has Patrick distracted. Race then distracts Patrick while Vader batters Sting in the corner. The crowd encourages Sting. Sting with a clothesline. He gets a 2 count. Sting with a top rope clothesline. He then hits another one. He hits a top rope splash for a 2 count. Vader comes back with a suplex for a 2 count. Vader can't get the pin. Vader with a clothesline. 1 minute left. Vader comes off the second rope, and Sting catches him in midair and slams him. A double count is going. 30 seconds left. Sting goes for a cover, but Race pulls Patrick out. Sting goes for the Scorpion Deathlock. Vader gets to the ropes. Time expires. We go to a 5-minute overtime. They continue to beat on each other. Vader with a suplex. 4 minutes left. Vader goes for a superplex, but Sting pushes him off. Sting falls off and gets a 2 count. Vader with a headbutt. Vader goes up top and gets caught. Sting with a backdrop to Vader off the ropes. A double count is going. Vader slams Sting for a 2 count. 1 minute left. Vader splashes Sting and gets another 2 count. 30 seconds left. Vader powerbombs Sting, but time expires before the 3 count. Sudden death. The bell rings and Vader is just hitting Sting with jabs and shots. Sting won't go down. Sting gets saved by the rope. Sting fires back. They go back and forth. Race up on the apron, but the Guardian Angel comes and grabs Race. Patrick goes out after him and doesn't see Vader fall down. A masked man comes down and hits Sting in the leg to knock him down, and Vader wins. People in the crowd take off after the masked man and almost get him. Vader calls out Hulk Hogan. Tony and Bobby talk about what just happened. Mean Gene talks about the rivalry between Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. He talks to Hogan via satellite. Hogan says he has a master plan for Ric Flair. They then show Flair supposedly calling Hogan. This is hokey. They go back and forth for a while. Hogan challenges Flair to a title versus career match. Flair accepts. Flair hangs up, and Hogan says he suckered Flair in, and his knee is fine. Gene says he's not going to say anything. Did they forget this was a pay-per-view? Bobby Heenan rightfully buries this whole thing. Gene then talks to Nick Bockwinkel. Bockwinkel makes it official for Halloween Havoc in a cage match. Michael Buffer makes the announcement of the War Games. Pyro goes off as the cage is lowered. Main event, Team Rhodes, Dusty Rhodes, Dustin Rhodes, and the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags versus the Stud Stable, Arn Anderson, Terry Funk, Bunkhouse Buck, and Robert Parker with Ming. They show Parker finding out he is the one who is going to be in the match. They then show what led up to the match. Mean Gene breaks down the rules of War Games. Dustin and Anderson start. Dustin takes Anderson down. He runs Anderson into the cage. Anderson makes Dustin follow him. Dustin does and keeps up the assault. Dustin stuffs Anderson's head between the rings. Anderson comes back by raking Dustin's head. Dustin with a flying clothesline to Anderson from one ring to another. Dustin with the flip, flop, and fly. Dustin with a lariat. Anderson hits a DDT. He beats on Dustin. He chokes Dustin with some wrist tape. Anderson hits a clothesline. Back and forth. Dustin gets a half crab. Coin toss. Parker's team wins. Buck in. He beats Dustin down. Double team to Dustin. They throw him into the cage. Double Boston Crab to Dustin. Sags in to even the score. He runs Buck into the cage. Hits Buck with a pile driver. Dustin with corner mounted punches to Anderson. He gets Anderson in a sleeper. Funk comes in and hits Dustin and Sags with his boot. He throws Dustin into the cage. He batters Dustin. Anderson and Buck go after Sags. Sags pile drives Funk, between the rings, and Funk falls between the rings. Knobbs comes in, but gets jumped at the door by the heels. Sags helps Knobbs, and they run the heels into the cage. Knobbs throws Anderson into the cage. Dustin rubs Buck's head on the cage. Nasty Boys and Dustin take turns hitting the heels with Funk's boot. Parker doesn't want to go in. He and Buck attack Dustin. The heels have belts and are taking it out on the faces. Dustin gets a belt and whips the heels. A Dusty chant goes out. He gets in and the crowd goes wild. The match beyond begins. He throws Funk, Anderson, and Buck into the cage and goes after Parker. Ming is trying to get in the cage. Dusty and the Nasty Boys are unloading on Parker. Dusty puts Parker in the figure 4. The Nasty Boys drop elbows on Parker and he gives up. The crowd goes wild. Ming gets in and checks on Parker. The faces leave the ring. Tony and Bobby recap the end of the match. They say Parker had an accident on himself. Parker, also known as Robert Fuller, has always denied it. They bring in Mean Gene. They talk about the Flair-Hogan cage match announcement and about Ming tearing up the back before signing off from Roanoke. We then get our end credits. Final thoughts. The Steamboat segment was sad, followed by the embarrassing Austin versus Duggan segment. The main event was good, but was overshadowed by the awful Hogan and Flair segment. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. I would really appreciate it. We can also be found on Spotify and YouTube. Just search for The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show and don't forget to hit subscribe. Thank you for joining me. This is Joey saying so long from the heart of Virginia.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.